Started. All right, good morning, Facebook friends. Hope all of you having a great Saturday morning. I'm sure you've heard the cliche, you don't know what you don't know. Well, we've all suffered from this problem of having painful experiences because we just simply didn't know. And can you remember when someone asked you that question, why did you do that? And you kind of look back with that blank stare and say, well, because I didn't know. Well, this saying, you don't know what you don't know, and the pain that we cause ourselves, there's nothing more true than how it applies to us financially. There's a 95% chance that you are costing yourself thousands of dollars a month. And this number over time is growing into hundreds of thousands of dollars, and for many people, millions of dollars over their lifetime, because they don't know what they don't know. This show today is, we're going to review a lot of questions that you should be asking yourself. See, to get the answers that we need to get to the destination of where we want to go, we have to ask ourselves the right questions. And in most cases, we don't know what we don't know, so we don't ask the right questions. We assume that based on the little bit of information that we have a kind of a clue of what we're doing, and we move forward. But I'm telling you, when it comes to building wealth and financial security, nothing could be farther from the truth. There is a lot to know. And there are big differences. So if you don't have a pad and a paper, get a pad and a paper. I'm going to review these questions with you. Now, what's great about Facebook as we stream this out live is it will be on Facebook for the next week. And so you can watch it again. But these questions are critical questions, because this is no joke. I almost guarantee you, over 9 out of 10 of you are costing yourself thousands of dollars per month because you simply don't know how wealth really grows. And the mindset is really simply this: I go to work, I make as much as I can, I pay my bills, and whatever is left over, I try to save that. What else can I do? Well, the answer is a lot. This belief that my financial security and path to wealth is 100% dependent on my ability to save money is a fallacy. It is simply not true. So the question I want to start with, and I want you to get in your mind, is if that question or that point that saving money isn't everything. Now, I'm never going to discourage you from saying we want to save money. The more we can save, the better. But it's not critical. It's not even essential. Now, so for all of you that are struggling to save money, that have had that mindset of, well, you know what, I can't save very much, so I'm just basically screwed financially. That's just the way it is. That's wrong. That is just simply wrong. It's not necessary. We can get you there, meaning the financial security, not just for you, but for your children. We can create a legacy of wealth without you having to save insane amounts of money. And I know you've heard that your whole life from everybody, like I heard it, but it's not true. It just isn't true. So I really want to hammer this point now. I want you, I hope you get that, because we're going to go through the process, because what you don't know is hurting you. So let's get into it. All right. The questions you need to ask to become rich. We're going to start reviewing this. What will your expenses be at the time of your retirement? Now, this is where it starts. Is depending on how old are you in life? Are you 25, 35, 45, 55, 65? The first thing that we have to look at is what are your expenses today, and then we want to do an analysis on what are they going to be at the time of your retirement. In most cases, people never do this analysis. People know what their bills are now. well, and I say that loosely because a lot of people never spend the time to really do a very good budget. They have a clue of what their expenses are, but they don't really have it nailed down. We need to nail down what your expenses are today. But the number one mistake that people make is in doing this analysis is that first they just don't do any analysis. We need to do the analysis because in their mind they kind of guesstimate what their expenses are going to be at the time of retirement. And they way undershoot what inflation and how inflation is going to affect their expenses. So we want to address that. We need to do that analysis. Now on our website, mark1wealthacademy.com, we have what we call our future retirement calculator, and it does this analysis of what your future expenses are going to be. So we need to start with what are your expenses today, and then we need to do this inflation adjusted number so we can look and say what are your expenses going to be at time of retirement, because that number of what your expenses are going to be at time of retirement is the bar. And you have to, we want to get you over that bar, but we have to know what the bar is. We need to establish what that bar is. The next critical question is, once we know that number, it's okay, here's where you are, here's where you're going to be, and there are some variables with that. Inflation is the one big one. The other is debt and debt reduction, and can we get rid of debt? And what debt can we get rid of? So now we know that number. How are we going to get there? Do you have any idea? Now let's say hypothetically in your mind you go, okay, well my expenses are roughly $5,000 a month for rent or house payment and car and all that. You get to that $5,000 a month number. Do you have any idea or any clue how you're going to get to $5,000 a month in monthly income? Most people have no idea. They have zero idea. What their whole process is what I call the save and hope plan, is they save as much as they can, they throw it in a 401k or an IRA, and they look and they say, well, that's as good as it gets, I guess. Pay my bills, I got $400 left, let's put 300 of it in the 401k or the IRA. What else can we do? A lot. That is not a solution. That is a path to a financial struggle to the day you die. So this is the next thing, is we need to know how are we going to create alternative income so that, and when I say alternative, because the reason I use that word is I want to make sure you understand, your primary income is your job. Everybody focuses so much on their job and what they're getting paid. They focus on that number. Some will focus on how much they can save, but they stop there. That is not the right thinking. It's not the right course. What we want to do is we want to focus on how much alternative income do you have, and we want to start with that right now. Do you have any alternative income right now? If you do not have alternative income to help you pay your bills today, I don't care how old you are, you're not doing it the right way. If you do not have alternative income helping you pay your bills today, $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000 or more, or whatever. If you don't have any alternative income, your financial plan, your financial strategy is seriously flawed. You're not doing it the right way. So that's the next critical question. Now, when will I have the alternative income I need to pay my bills so that I can retire if I choose? Now, we need to look at the timeline. So we started with this saying, okay, if our expenses are $5,000 a month, today, we do this analysis, and let's say hypothetically, and again, inflation is going to affect this. If you look at what's happened over the past 6 or 7 years with real estate prices and rent prices going up and up and up, the national inflation rate in this country right now is between 1.5% and 2%. That's not a real number in Southern California. It's not even close to a real number in Southern California. Inflation in Orange County has been running closer to 5%. Property values have been running about 8.5% annually. 40 to 50% of the average person's expenses is housing. So if 40 to 50% of your expenses are going up 8% a year, where does 1.5 or 2 come in? 1.5 or 2 applies if you live in South Dakota. If you live in the Midwest someplace, or there are other states, Arkansas, there's even places, Connecticut's inflation rate's been lower, Vermont, so on, but not Southern California. We're not close to that. So we need to know where that number is going to be. And then when we look at alternative income, my point here is it's got to be a focus. We get what we focus on. This is the number one reason people struggle financially when it comes to retirement plan, because alternative income is not even on the radar screen. It is. I want you to think about that. Okay, if you've talked to a financial planner and you talked about your 401k meeting, do they talk about the conversation of, well, let's talk about how much alternative income we can have today at age 35 or age 40 or age 45 to help you pay your bills? It's not part of the conversation. The reason it's not part of the conversation is because with a 401k or IRA, if you pull out any money, you get penalized. Wouldn't you rather start creating alternative income now to start lightening the financial load, to start making your life easier financially today and each year that goes by? So we need to focus on it. We get solutions to questions that we ask, and when we pursue those solutions. So again, I want you to think, do you have alternative income now? If you do not, do you have a plan? Do you know how you're going to get alternative income within the next 6 months? If the answer is no to those questions, you're not doing it right. You're on the wrong path. All right, next up is, how secure will this income be? Now, boy, that's a big one. When you think back, to the 2008, 2009 financial meltdown, if you had $1 million in the stock market and the market dropped 60% and now your portfolio is worth $400,000, what do you think just happened to your retirement income? Just got crushed, right? Just got crushed. So we need to have retirement income that is secure, that is going to weather those kinds of storms. So does your retirement income plan, is it secure? Is it going to weather these kinds of storms? Will this income ever run out? When you look at the strategy, I call it the save and hope strategy, the 401k or IRA typical strategy, the whole plan from the get-go is save as much as you can. Let's say whatever number we can get to. The average person in this country is saving $200 a month or less. At that level, they're going to hit 150, 200 grand if they do it over a 30-year period. But let's say you get up to $500,000. Someone gets to $500,000, think, well, hey, I'm in pretty good shape. Not really, because if your bills are $5,000 a month today, that's $60,000 a year today, and that's before tax. You got to pay some tax, so we got to add tax to that. So if your expenses, though, just to make the math simple, $60,000 a year today, what are they going to be in 10, 20, 30 years? It's going to be a lot more. So let's say it's $60,000 today, and let's say in 20 years it's 100 grand. You got 500 grand in expenses, 100 grand a year. Divide it out, 5 years. That's a problem, right? And so when we look at that, is your money going to run out? Next big point to this. Is your retirement plan based on you living on your life savings? Now, for about 80% of the people in this country, that's their whole plan. Save as much as I can. I'm going to retire and I'm going to live on that. If that is your plan, it's the wrong plan. You do not ever want to spend your principal, because as soon as you start spending the principal, meaning your life savings, it's going to start to decline. And what's going to happen is your earnings are going to decline, and then they feed on themselves, and then the deceleration as far as the amount of wealth starting to evaporate very quickly. And so two bad things happen with that. One is you're going to run out of money, or you're going to be living so meagerly to survive. It's not a good experience. In today's world, who knows how long you're going to live? You're going to live to be 90, 95, 100 years old. Your money's going to run out, which all of that is horrible for you, but then it's also really terrible for your children and having any kind of legacy of wealth to make the next generation's life better. What is more important? Building wealth or building alternative income? Now that's a question that very few people ever think of. Even financial planners do not have this conversation with you. What is more important, building wealth or building alternative income? See, the average person, and even the really bright analyticals are going to look at that and go, wait a second, what are you talking about? Isn't the whole aren't they one and the same? No, they're not one and the same. They're not one and the same. Well, how can they not be one and the same? Well, let me explain. Everybody's so focused on, okay, I got to save, we got to grow that. How can we get the maximum return? Let's grow that number. Okay. Here's how they're not the same, is that when you're just focused on the wealth number and growing that, all right, and then like say if it's sitting in the 401k, you're not going to be getting any alternative income. It's just going to sit there, and then you're not eligible to get any of it till you're 59 and a half. But here's where it's different. What we can do and what we need to do, especially if you're younger. Now, if you're 55, especially north of 60, we really want to focus on just alternative income and that's it. Okay. But if you're younger, we want to focus more on building wealth today and alternative income later. Here's the logic. The reason is because if you're younger, if you're in your 30s or 40s, you're not in a place really close to retiring, you do have the income. So you're living on your income. The alternative income is nice, but it's not critical to your survival at this point. When you're 65 or 70, alternative income is critical if you're to retire. We can build strategies that are going to help you to accumulate massive wealth through your 30s and 40s and 50s. And then as we get older, then we want to take that massive wealth and then start to convert that into the alternative income and stop focusing on maximum wealth growth, instead focusing on maximum alternative income growth. So where you are and what your age is matters. Now let me show you this chart here. This is a chart, you can see California rent history dating back to 1990. Here's where this is relevant. Why I wanted to share this with you. When we talked, I raised that question, how stable is your alternative income or retirement income? And I like to call it alternative income because we want this money. See, I don't plan on retiring. I don't know if a lot of people want to retire. I don't want to retire. I get bored to tears if I retire. I don't plan on retiring, but I call it alternative income for two reasons. I want you to get the money now. Not at 65, but let's start getting the money now and sustaining your quality of life. Here's what we learned from the Great Meltdown. Now, I want you to look on this chart in the years of 2008, 2009. 2008, 2009 was the greatest financial meltdown since the 30s in both the stock market and the real estate market. The stock market was down 60%. Real estate was down anywhere from about 50 to 60%, depending on where you were in the country. But what happened to rents? Look at the 2008, 2009 rents. They didn't go down. And in fact, they actually even went up. Here's why. We had all these people losing their homes because of the supply and demand. People lost their homes. They were stuck with that. They had an option. What are the options? Be homeless or rent. And not surprisingly, the people rented. If you look at this history of rents dates back to 1990. It's a 25-year history, but if we look at these numbers, this is consistent back to World War II into the 40s. I want you to imagine this chart being a stock. Try to find a stock with this kind of lack of volatility, this kind of consistent, gradual growth, secure growth dating back to the 40s. It doesn't exist. This would be the most secure stock ever. Rental income has a level of security and here's what's key, is it's detached from the asset value. So even though the asset dropped 50 to 60%, the income didn't drop 50 to 60%. Try to find another investment like that. The reason is because of the supply and demand cycle of rental properties. It's detached from the asset value. Other investments don't have that. And in Southern California, how long do you think demand is going to come for property in Southern California and rents? I mean, how long do you think people are going to keep moving here from all over the world? Not just this country, but literally all over the world. I don't see any time soon that that's going to change. The stability of your alternative income is huge. All right, next up. How does my age affect my wealth building plan? Well, it absolutely affects it. Again, because this gets back to one of the points I was talking a little bit earlier about, is we need to have a wealth plan where in the early years, we want to create maximum wealth growth. One of the big questions I'm getting from a lot of people is, well, should I invest in Southern California or should I invest out of state? Cash flows out of state are doing better than cash flows in Southern California. Well, the answer is, how old are you? Depends on your age. Because if you're 60 and looking to retire anytime soon, then it's the decision pretty much 100% about cash flow. And so out of state or different markets, I looked at an investment with, an agent contacted me and we did a review on one of her clients with respect to a property in the high desert, and the cash flow was outstanding. I mean, to be candid with you, I was kind of startled that I didn't realize the cash flow in the high desert was that good. So that was something that you're not going to see in Orange County. So there are those options. But my point gets back to age. If you're not 55 plus, you should be investing in Southern California, because the wealth growth that you're going to get because of demand is going to blow away pretty much just about any other place in the country. There's only 2 or 3 other places that have Southern California kind of growth rates. Does my 401k IRA fit in my wealth building plan? A friend of mine is mega wealthy, and he has a retirement plan, pension plan that he put money into. Now he's retired, and we had this conversation. His circumstance is really unique because he made so much money and had so much money to invest in a lot of different ways. And what he uses his retirement plan for is it's self-directed now, and he uses it to make private loans. It is not managed by an outside source. So that's kind of a unique circumstance. But for the average person, and when I say the average person, I'm really talking 80% of the population, the 401k is detrimental to them. Here's why. There's no alternative income now. They do not get any financial help now. Number 2 is it is a linear wealth growth model, meaning the multiple on your growth is really, really limited. So it doesn't grow very rapidly, and you cannot access it. And if you want to use it to make certain types of investments that are outside of the limited types of investments within your 401k or IRA, you can't do it. And so they limit you to that. They'll say, okay, well, you can access up to 50% of it. So for many, many people, it doesn't fit within their plan. How do I prepare for a catastrophic economic events? And here's what this is all about. This is having retirement income that is absolutely secure through every economic cycle. And I showed you that chart of the rents. Try to find another investment that did that well through the great meltdown of 2008, 2009, as far as consistent income. All right, next up is how do I protect my wealth from litigation? This is where you need a good attorney, a trust attorney. I've worked with a number of trust attorneys. That's one key way as far as getting a trust. There are many different types of trust. I never get into making legal advice, but a trust attorney is key. There are also LLC, limited liability companies. Getting an LLC is another great way to protect assets. If you have properties, if you secure property, put each individual one into an LLC. But again, this is all legal stuff. We want to get an attorney. In fact, by the way, in January, we're going to bring a trust attorney in, a real estate attorney. We're going to talk about all of this. It's going to be focused on this. How do I pass my wealth on to my heirs? Again, this is part of trust planning. If you do not have a trust, huge mistake. Dealing with probate, super expensive, and a lot of crazy things can happen through probate. How fast can I grow my wealth, and what are the risks versus reward variables? When I sit down and do consultations with people, I never say this is what I would do, because all of us have a different threshold for risk. What I do is we sit down and we analyze, okay, here are the options. And your threshold for risk is going to be attached to a couple things. One, just kind of who you are as a person, but the other is where you are in life, how old you are. Someone that's 30, 35 is going to typically have a much greater threshold for risk than as you get older. But the point of this is we need to factor those things in. As you get older, we want to be more conservative because you don't have time to make up for mistakes. And sometimes if those are just aggressive mistakes. But the other thing is there's going to be different opportunities. You need to understand. We need to analyze. You need to understand the risk, because risk and reward. You take a little greater risk, you can receive greater rewards. You take too great a risk, and it can all blow up on you. How important is market timing? That's probably the number one question. Everybody was talking, well, all year, what I was hearing in 2017. Well, real estate markets had a big run up. We've got to be nearing the end. Shouldn't be getting involved. I'm telling you, if you look at the history of property values and market timing, most people are late because they follow the herd mentality. This new tax reform bill, I spent a lot of time studying that tax reform, is an absolute game changer. We saw the Dow start to increase. I'm telling you, this new, it isn't finalized yet, but it looks like, if you look at how the Senate and the House, the variance between the bills are really subtle. There's everybody's saying, Goldman Sachs just say, look, there's a 90% probability it's going to be settled by Christmas, and I agree with that. But the tax write-offs for real estate depreciation, the tax write-offs for interest deduction, property tax are still there. There's a subtle variation between the House and the Senate. I personally think the Senate's going to prevail over that, which is going to keep the full mortgage deduction, and that's huge. But that is going to help propel the market next year. When I say the market, the overall economy, the stock market, the real estate market, and so on. But my point is market timing is, I don't pay a lot of attention to market timing. And here's why. Because what I pay attention to is the herd mentality. Meaning, if the herd is really running at something, most people, that's what they're looking for. What I really look for is when the herd is asleep. Baron Rothschild has a great quote. This is probably from the late 1800s. It says, "The time to invest is when there's blood in the streets." Meaning when people are bailing out and they're panicking. So that, I'll just leave that with you there. How do I get started? Well, how we start is with a plan. We need to analyze, where are you today? So let's get out of your mind that I need to have a lot of money saved, and I need to be able to save a lot of money. Just get that out of your mind. Because if that limitation is going to just do that, it's going to limit your future. We can overcome all of that. When can I get started? As soon as possible. We need to get your plan. Now, if you are unemployed and have real credit issues because of that, there's not a lot we can do. But we need to have, if you've got a job, you're making decent money, and when we say decent money basically is about $50,000 or more a year. You should have a wealth building plan. Do you have any alternative income now? If the answer is no, you need to know how. We need to analyze where you are, what your resources are, and how do we start this path of creating alternative income now. And even if you can't execute that today, you need to know exactly how you can, so we can get moving toward that direction. Now, this is the history of real estate and what I talked about as far as market timing. And I want you to, let me go back here. Okay, I want you to notice, look at when property values were skyrocketing. Now, by the way, 2004, in April 2004 is when I did the 13 or 14 interviews on TV and so on, basically in national radio and all that, basically saying, hey, the market is going to have a meltdown and we're going to have massive foreclosures. You can see the next 3 years we had the continued run up. Now, when was everybody getting in? You can see the total herd mentality. When were the best times to buy? Even look at 2008. Was 2008 better time to buy than 2005, 6, and 7? Absolutely. How many people were buying? Not very many. So the 2008, 2009, when everybody was in absolute panic mode, and this basically kind of legitimizes or verifies what Baron Rothschild was talking about. But most people, their vision is backwards. It's not forwards. So don't listen to most people. You know, I have a saying, is fear the herd. Group mentality, group think is rarely right. It's mostly wrong. So you don't want to just tie into the herd mentality. It's rarely right. All right, let's move on. All right, our Mark1wealthacademy.com website. If you've not received, in fact, we've just updated our ebook. Go to the wealthacademy.com, get your free ebook. I'm telling you, this ebook has a ton of powerful content. It's really going to teach you about the keys to wealth growth. Here's the big difference. It's between linear wealth growth. I'm telling you, 95% of you are on this linear wealth growth path. You're going to struggle. That way you're not going to realize what your full potential is for wealth growth and for retirement income. We want to get you on this exponential wealth growth, but you got to learn what the heck it is. And it's not rocket science, but it's going to take you some time. We are going to be I'm doing a presentation on this. So pay attention. Do we have a date on that, by the way?
20th, webinar?
Yes.
20th.
Okay, so December 20th. Do we have a time?
4 o'clock.
4 o'clock, December 20th. I'm doing a webinar, how to turn $1,000 into $100,000. What this presentation is all about is it's the path of learning and understanding the difference between linear wealth growth and exponential wealth growth. This is how people become mega wealthy. It took me forever to learn this. Very few people know this. I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to show you for free. But I got to get your mind, because I know so many of you are so friggin' cynical. You're just cynical, just you don't believe that your life could be any way, because your whole life, this group think, you've been told, hey, it's all about saving money. Bull crap. It is not all about saving money. Because I can't save, I'm just screwed. That's just the way it is. Forget this group think. It frustrates the heck out of me, because it's not true. Open your mind. On this December 20th, 4 to 5 o'clock, we're going to do this presentation. I'm going to blow your mind and show you through exponential wealth growth education on how we can get you to the place of financial security, change your life, change your children's life. So if you want to learn more and get on this path, we can start with scheduling your How to Become Rich plan. You can see my number here. We have my personal website is markprather.com, or we have the mark1wealthacademy.com. There are a lot of videos on there, a lot of information. There's a registration on there. Depending on what location we have, Wealth Academy advisors all around Southern California. Now we're in 3 other states, which is super exciting to me. This journey of building financial security and wealth is here. It's available to you. There's an opportunity, and your upfront cost. There is no upfront cost. Can't make it any easier than that. All right, let's wrap up. This is something from my book, Wisdom for Your Daily Life. Who is your master? Like a puppet on strings, our lives are pulled up and down from happiness and struggles and sadness and back again. Over time, we begin to believe this is just the way life has to be. But this is not true. We can and need to break the strings of our mastery. Our lives are controlled by our attachment to wealth, power, pleasure, or recognition. For many years, I was in all of the above category. When we attach our lives to these 4 demons, our lives are jerked around. Which one of these demons are you attached to? Is it wealth or power and being in charge? Many are attached to pleasure by seeking drugs, sex, and alcohol, or attention and recognition from everyone and anyone. True and lasting happiness can only be achieved when we break the chains of our slavery from these 4 masters. What these 4 masters have in common is what I call all about me thinking. Freeing ourselves is not easy. It first starts with awareness, so we can begin the process of detachment. Now you might wonder, what is the point of life if you're detached from everything? The answer is that we become better and have a better life by replacing these false values with things that truly matter. Look around you. Do you see any problems in the world? Every family, every community struggles with conflict. bring them hope. As we begin to take our focus off of ourselves and put it on others, we elevate the lives around us through love and compassion. As their lives are risen, so too will our lives. What are some of the demons that master your life? What of these demons are you attached to that determines your happiness? Are they truly fulfilling? That wraps up this week. Thank you, everyone. And if you have any questions, shoot me an email or go to the website. And I'll look forward to talking to you next week. Thank you.
Let's just say this too. If people want to get registered for that webinar and they're not already subscribers, email you.
Oh, yes. Okay.
We'll send them a link.
Yeah. So thank you, Serena. So if you're not already a subscriber, you can shoot me an email and we'll get you on board. But I'm telling you, please tell your friends, because this is an absolute life changer. When you understand the difference from getting on this groupthink path of just linear wealth growth and get off of that, because you don't think there's any other way. And I know a lot of you are going, oh my God, there's no, I've heard this forever. This guy's done that case. I'm telling you, do the webinar, you'll learn, you'll see. When everyone that sees this webinar, that I've been doing these presentations, I'm going to the webinar because I just can't run around doing these presentations all over the place. And technology is the way. You got to see this. When you understand the mechanics of this, you're going to, well, the word I love is enlightened. You're going to be enlightened to see a completely different way in how you can grow your wealth. It's anywhere from 14 to as much as 30 times faster than linear wealth growth. Pretty mind-blowing. All right, have a great weekend, and I look forward to seeing you next week.